Hello, I'm Graeme Park, and welcome to another Creative Futures session where I talk to a variety of creative industry professionals in front of an online audience of students from Glyndwr University. Today, our special guest is a British actor who's appeared in scores of TV dramas, including Brookside, Prime Suspect, Heartbeat, Law and Order, Waking the Dead, Emmerdale, the list goes on, and lots more as well, plus films and theatre productions too. Please welcome John McArdle. Hello, John. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Graeme. Yeah, looking forward to talking with you.
So let's rewind. Let's get right down to business. Rewind all the way back to your youth, right? You're from Liverpool. Now,
Yeah.
that's a city that has seen a lot of changes since you were a child growing up there. Tell us a bit about your background growing up in Liverpool and when you decided you wanted to be an actor.
Well, I was born in Liverpool, but I wasn't actually brought up in Liverpool because my dad was in the so we traveled all over the world when I was a kid. So I had like this great traveled childhood. So I lived in Hong Kong, Germany, and all different places in England. So that was a great start for me in a way, because I got to know different cultures, different people, different languages, and it was a very colourful upbringing. It wasn't until I got, I've always liked storytelling and reading. So English was always my best subject at school. English and we didn't have drama when I was at school in the late 60s. We did it through English, and we had this wonderful drama teacher who used to tell us to get up in front of the whole class and explain what we'd read about or act it out. So this is the first time that I had a feeling for actually performing. And so I'd read a book or a novel, or The Kidnapped, or sort of different classical novels, and then he'd ask you to praise it and then your comprehension on it, and then we'd act it out in front of the class. Anyway, his name was Mr. Boyle. He's a big guy. We used to call him Meatball Mason. He had this wonderful presence, and he said, "Do you want to join I'm starting a drama group, John. Would you like to join?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." Anyway, I played I think it was Treasure Island or something like that, and I had like one of the main parts in it. And up to that point, none of the teachers really noticed who I was at school. I was just this other student who was around. He wasn't particularly good at anything, really, very average in most subjects. But in this subject, I shined. So the next day, every teacher in the school came, "McArdle, that was wonderful, McArdle. We didn't know you had it in you. It was great, So from there, I loved the recognition for a start off. Also, I loved performing because I'm a very quiet person in my everyday to-day life. I'm quite shy, but that was a way of expressing, how I felt about things. So at that time, it was the late 60s. It wasn't encouraged to go into the profession of acting because
how old were you at this point? How old were you?
I was 15, 16. Right. Yeah. That was it. So I left school without any qualifications whatsoever. I didn't even do any O-levels at the time. And I went in to become a trainee manager and various jobs. Anyway, I decided to go to Australia at the age of 19. So I came to Australia. When I came back from Australia, I was 23. My wife at the time had joined a college of further education, and she was doing art. And I was a scaffolder. I was like this, building rough guy. And she said, "Why don't you take a course at the, College of FE? Do something, you don't want to be a scaffolder all your life." So I took some O-levels at the time. I took 5. And at that time, there was a drama group within the FE. And they asked me, because I was a scaffolder, to build a bridge for a set.
Wow.
Which was a play called Albert's Bridge by Tom Stoppard. So I didn't know much about this, the acting lark. Anyway, I used to watch the actors as they rehearsed. And there was one guy playing a northern industrialist. He was a southerner. And he wasn't doing it quite right. But who was I? I was a lowly stagehand. Anyway, this guy dropped out because he was ill 3 weeks before the opening. And I came up to the director and said, "Can I audition for that part? I'm sure I could play it, He said, "Have you done it before?" I said, "School." Told the same story that I've told you. And he said, well, audition you. So I auditioned me. I got the part. It was a successful play. I got good notices. I loved it. And then after 2 years or 3 years at the FE college, I know I was 26, 27, coming up to 27. I said, can I do this for a living? I'd love to do it for a living as a professional. And he said, yeah, you have to go to drama school. You know, you have to be trained, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, yeah, okay. So I applied at 5 different drama schools. I think I applied at Central School, Guildhall, Bristol, RADA, and East 15. I went to East 15 and I got in straight away. They offered me a place. So I didn't even bother with the rest. I just said, right, I want to go here. It's the sort of place I want to go. And I spent 3 wonderful years at East 15. I see, drama school, I think, is a great place, or university or whatever, where you're applying your craft, is a great place to fail. Because you know your strengths and weaknesses when you go. You know whether you can sing or not, or dance, or you can do these extra sort of skills. I found out my main skill was really acting. I could sing a little bit, but that wasn't my great strength. So anyway, after 3 years of drama school, I call it like an apprenticeship. Then it was like 1980. I did TIE. I was very lucky, I must admit, because even then, I mean, there wasn't as many drama students about as there are now, but even then it was an overcrowded profession. 90% of the actors were out of work at one time. You know, it was that bad. I was lucky enough to get work in theatre and education. And then the next step up was rep. Now, repertory theatre company is where you learn so much in a very short space of time. I was lucky enough to get into the Everyman Theatre in Liverpool and do 5 plays a year, 5 or 6 plays a year. And there you'd have the lead in one play, the next you'd be supporting, and so on. So it was quite evenly distributed, the casting. So you're cast right through for a year. So you had a year's work, which is wonderful for any actor.
Of course.
Also, at that same time, I was doing bits and pieces of TV, you know, small parts. Street was one of the first jobs I ever had. Oh yeah, Shakespeare. I'll have to tell you the first Shakespeare, a little story about the first Shakespeare I ever had. It was at Chester Gateway. I was very lucky enough in my first Shakespeare to do Macbeth, but I played Banquo, which was a lovely role. But there was one guy who was playing Seaton, the servant to Macbeth. And in this scene, he has to come on and tell Macbeth that Macbeth's wife has died, committed suicide. And I wasn't on stage at the time, but I used to watch through the curtains because I loved the play that much. Anyway, this particular night, he came on, Seaton, and said to Macbeth, "My wife, my lord, is dead." And Macbeth went, "What about my wife?" He went, "She's dead and all."
That's really funny. But hang on a minute. I thought you actors you said the Scottish play? I thought you didn't say the name of the play.
I'm not on stage and I'm not in a theatre.
Oh, right. Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Okay. So basically you're late. When you went to drama school, you're actually a bit late to the party.
Yeah.
You're in your late 20s. Yeah. But when did you, and you did, okay, doing rep and Shakespeare and getting experience, did you have any kind of ambition apart from just being an actor, or did you want to kind of reach out? Because obviously early 80s, you start becoming quite proficient on television. Did you have an ambition, or was it just, I'm doing what I want to do and we'll see what happens?
Well, after what I always say, after working for the first 10 years of my life in a proper job, in a job that was very hard and very, you know, sort of physically very hard and what have you, to actually land a job that I loved, and I still do, and I've been doing it for over 40 years, and I still love it as much as I did when I started, was wonderful. That's all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do is either be in front of a camera or be on a stage or in front of a microphone doing radio or whatever. So I'd landed my dream job, and I was very appreciative of it. And also, you know, sort of, and then when you get this recognition for being on television, it's weird because Brookside at the time was so big that it was the biggest thing on Channel 4. So overnight, I became quite well known. So everywhere you went, there were people going on, talking to you as if it was the character. And I thought after that, it's going to ruin my career as an actor in terms of being typecast. And because I was in the program for 5 years, but it had the opposite effect. In fact, it helped my career no end because Brookside was in the business, was well renowned and very respected by directors and producers and that, because of its innovative style of filming and shooting on one camera like you do on film. It wasn't multi-camera like in most soaps, so it was shot differently. So it had this great respect, and it opened the doors to my career. I was very lucky. I was never out of work. There was always a TV job coming up.
No, I noticed that because looking at from Brookside onwards, you go through the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, right up to the present day, always working. And you're right, you've not been typecast because you have played a real variety of roles. But you said Brookside was innovative. Can we just go back to it? I remember the day Channel 4 launched and just watching it count down, and then the news, and then Brookside and everything. I used to love Brookside. But it was innovative because they built the set as houses. They kind of built this little close. And of course, it was also the launch pad for people like Sue Johnston, and Ricky Tomlinson became more well known. What was it like? First of all, how did you get the gig, and what was it like working on it?
Well, I'd done it. I played a part in it before.
That's right,
I played
you
my
did.
main character.
That's right, you did. Yeah.
I played a teacher. You see, they thought I was this sort of, because my accent isn't strong Liverpool, right? They thought, oh, we'll cast him as this teacher. He's very good, soft accent. So I thought that was it for me. But I was doing bouncers at the Everyman, and one of the directors said, "Have you ever done Brookside before?" And I said to him, "Yeah, but I was playing a teacher." He went, "No, we're looking for like a lead character." So I went into the audition, right, like the character. I mean, it was a bit methody on me. So I went in, "All right, mate." So I was going like, "All right, lad." And I was like, I went in like that, and you could see the casting director looking at me because she cast me as the teacher. And here's me coming playing this like scally type of guy, like, you know what I mean? And but the others didn't know, and they were going. So after they offered me the job like 2 days later, so it was wonderful. And then, funny enough, working with Sue Johnson, I'd worked with Sue on stage before, so we were friends. In fact, I remember when Sue got the job. Sue got the job, and we were really pleased for her that she'd been working in TIE for 30 years, Sue, for a long time, and she got this job. So we were made up. And 2 years later, I joined her. And she's a mate anyway, so it became wonderful. And funny enough, springing from that relationship I had with Sue, Jim Cartwright wrote a play for us. The play was called Two. And it was Jim Cartwright, Andy Hay directed it at the Bolton Octagon. And we were both leaving Brookside. And he said, "I'd like to write a play for the both of you." And it was Two. And it was just a wonderful way of leaving the program and branching back out into theatre. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the Everyman's very, very famous theatre, not just in Liverpool, but around the country. How important is that for young actors, but also for Liverpool in general? Because a lot of that, you said Sue Johnston and others have all got a strong connection with the Everyman.
Yeah. No, the Everyman has produced, Julie Walters and people like that, Bernard Hill. There's loads and loads. Jonathan Price even started there. And Matthew Kelly, and a lot of your young students won't probably know them, but if they look them up, they're there. A lot of good actors from that period joined. And when I got into the Everyman, I was there for 2 seasons. I signed up for 2 seasons and loved it. And funny enough, I'd gone all around the world and everything, looking for some sort of recognition or whatever. And it was there really in my hometown, because most of the main things I did, like Brookside, Merseybeat, the Everyman, the Playhouse, the Royal Court, all this wonderful. It is a pool of talent that's going on there. It was a great place to work, Liverpool.
And obviously, like the majority of theatres and live venues, since March, its doors have had to close. What effect is that going to have for people who want to become actors, or even people who are currently earning their living from this sector because of the pandemic?
it affected me. I was about to open in a play at Hornchurch, and it was the opening night. In fact, when they called us into the office and said, you have to go home. It's, you know, the pandemic has started. Also, my son, who's just starting out as an actor, was just building up his CV quite well. And he was in at the Finborough Theatre in London, doing Not Quite Jerusalem, which was going to be transferred. And he got pulled. So I can only look at it from his point of view as well, because I haven't done much since the lockdown at all. The odd online work, but Joe has hardly had anything. He's had two radio plays to do, which radio, it's a bit more contained. There's no audience there. Obviously, there's just the actors, and he also writes as well. So that's helped him. But hopefully for all young actors and young people starting out in the business, that it will open up again very, very soon. But at the moment, I can't see it opening until at least next summer or beyond.
I know.
You know,
and of course, it's not just actors; it's people who want to work behind the scenes as well, like the stage hands, set designers, but even the people who sell the tickets and sell the drinks behind the bar. Now, you mentioned your son, Joe. I spoke to you earlier today, and you said that you were trying to discourage him from being an actor, which, why would you want to discourage your son when you've had a great career? And also, you mentioned his CV. How important for a young actor is a CV and getting experience on there?
Well, I'll answer the first question first. Is my two kids, I've got one from a previous marriage. He lives in Australia. He's a producer, which is great. Right. But he never puts work my way, Moss. But Joe, I've got, my youngest is Joe and Katie. But I never encouraged my kids to be actors. I don't know why. It was one of those things I thought, I'll let them find out for themselves if they want to do it. Because they were always they'd come backstage, they'd be on sets, film sets with me. So they were brought up with it all around them. So I thought, if they want to do it, they're going to say. My daughter Katie went to York Uni, and she was doing languages or something. And she didn't want to act. When she leaves, she decides she wants to act. But luckily for her, she can write as well. She wrote her own piece and got an Arts Council grant to do it because she wasn't getting any work. And that's how she started off. Whereas, and Joe, he went to Edinburgh University and he did English and theology. And he didn't realise, he realised when he was at university, because he joined a company called the Improverts up in Edinburgh, and he did the Fringe every year that he was there. He did the Fringe, and I think one of the plays he did got transferred to the Arts Theatre in London. So he got the bug, and what can you do? Get on with it. That's it. But the CV thing is, I said to him, like, even stuff that you've done at drama school, put that down on your CV. Put down anything connected with the work at all, that you can. Obviously, you have to build on it. That's the way. But I also encourage students and everything to have another string to the bow. Whereas Joe does writing. He's written a few things that have been published. He's, small plays and things he's written, and he tries to do that. When he's not working as an actor, he'll write. Or he'll channel his creative talents into another branch, and I think everyone must have another skill nowadays, because also when I left drama school, even though it was overcrowded, there was a lot more work. Now you've got a lot more actors and a lot less work, so the competition is really, really high. So you've got to be tough. You've got to be tough out there to last the course. Stick with it. If you really want to do it, you've got to stick with it.
Well, you've certainly stuck with it for 40 years. So you left Brookside. You did the play with Sue called Two, but then you've done some very serious dramas. You've also done other soaps. You've most recently been in Emmerdale. You've even done The Bill. You've been on the two great hospital dramas, Casualty and Holby City. But like I say, you've done some very serious some serious roles, but you play a very mean superintendent as well. So there's quite a range to characters. Have you had to do many auditions over the years, or do people come to you and go, "I want John McArdle to play this part"?
I've had both. when I left Brookside, they just want to meet you and have a chat, and they'd offer you the job, so you wouldn't read or anything. And other times, a director who doesn't know your work or has never met you will ask you to read. So I'd have to audition, and it's very mixed like that. And because I've been around a long time, obviously, I'll work with the same director again, and he'll know my work. But the thing is, it doesn't just come from the director now. The director had more power when I was younger. He would with the casting director, he would cast. He'd have a power over who he wanted in it. Whereas now you've got the producers who have a big say in it. And sometimes the writer, not so much, but sometimes. So, you know, it's having that relationship with everybody in a way. And yeah, no, I find that even now, you know, I have to do self-taping like everybody else does. So, and I don't mind. That's what they want. I'll do it. Especially if it's Netflix or something. The Americans don't know your work. Then you have to self-tape. Excuse me.
So how important, you say like Americans don't know your work, is having an online presence important these days? I mean, I know a lot of younger actors will already be all over the internet on social media, but I noticed you haven't got a website, but you have got a Facebook page. Actors of your generation, because we were speaking to Karen Henthorne the other week, and she said that she's not big on social media, but she liked somebody's post on Twitter, and that led to her getting a job. So what's your take on online presence?
I think it's very important nowadays. It's very important indeed, not just for socially, but for sort of networking in a way. And like you say, if you can get contacts or through social network, then do it. I remember because on Facebook, even on Facebook, a young band in Liverpool got in touch with me through Facebook and asked, would I be in their video, in their pop video? And so I got work through social media. So I think it's really important. And also other actors can swap ideas together on social networks and find out where the work is. I mean, your agent's supposed to do that anyway. So your agent's supposed to do everything as regards finding work, but sometimes they can't cover everything. But you get some actor who's starting in something and he can tell another actor what's going on and what they're casting. And I think that is a great communication tool.
Which band and which pop video are you in?
They're called the Bow Weevils. I've never heard of them, but they're from Liverpool. I don't know if they're up and coming or not, but they're really good. They're a really good band. So
all right, we'll all be looking for that on YouTube now, definitely. Yeah, you mentioned agents there. First of all, how many agents have you had over the years, and how important is having a good agent? And how much do you rely on an agent, or how much do you trust an agent to make decisions on your behalf?
The better the agent, the more work you'll get. That's the crux of it. Now, I started off with a not so good agent. I get a lot of my work myself through theatre. So, and then as I progressed, I started to get better and better agents. And really, there are 5 agents in London, I think. I can't name them all, but there are only 5 that are going to get you that top work in America. They're the ones. You know what I mean? If you can get on with those agents, Luke Coulson being one of them, they are the ones to be with. Other than that, most agents are pretty much the same. It's about, they say when you change an agent, it's a bit like changing deck chairs on the Titanic, really. So, and it's really, I've had one, I've only had 3 agents in my whole career. I was with one, Dennis Line, Hope and Line they were called, and they were wonderful. And when I left him, I was with him for about 25 years. It was like being divorced because we built up this wonderful relationship. I felt so sad, but I wanted to leave him because there was certain work I wasn't getting, and I knew that it was because he was restricted in that he wasn't in the loop or something. And then I left him for this big agent. I mean, a really big agent, and they were turning work down without telling me because they didn't think it was good enough. And I'm a jobbing actor. I needed to live. I needed to pay my mortgage at the time. So I had to leave her, and I'm now with Roxanne Vacker, who's wonderful. She's like one of the better agents in London, I think.
That's interesting because I mean I'm a musician, DJ, performer. And I've had similar situations with agents deciding on your behalf that it's not good enough, and it really winds me up. So you got an agent you trust now, is that right?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, you build up a good one-to-one relationship with your agent, I think. Right, my agent has my main agent deals with film and television, and the other person in the office is the theatre agent, which is her assistant. So I have like two in a way.
Different disciplines, acting in front of a camera and acting in front of an audience. Do you have a preference, and how do you approach the different methods of acting?
I find theatre satisfying. I find it challenging. Find it can be scary sometimes, which is why I do it. But I do love the camera. I love being in front of that camera because I can be more natural. I can find it. I don't have it. It's no effort. And personally, I don't find it an effort. I find it a very natural thing to do. Whereas in theatre, you're using more of a technique. You're using your breath, your voice, the awareness of space, and also you're going through for 2 hours without stopping. Whereas in television and film, you can stop whenever you think it's not good enough or you make a mistake. There is that freedom, but you don't get that same satisfaction as you do with a live audience. But I still prefer doing film.
Right. Do you have to, based on what you just said there, do you have to prepare more for theatre? Because obviously, like you say, if you make a massive cock up when it's being filmed, it's like, oh, sorry, can we do that again? Yeah. And also the director might say, I want to do that again, but I want to do it from a different angle, etc., etc. Yeah. But in theatre, what if you forget your lines? What do you do?
You either improvise or
you don't forget your lines.
You either improvise or dry, thing like that. Yeah. But I think there's a technique, I think, to people in front of cameras and stuff. You should never be nervous of it. I always think it's just, the camera is just a piece of equipment. It's just there. And all those people that are around you, all those great technicians, you couldn't work without. You was talking about technicians before, the clapper loader, the grip, the lighting, the sparks, the first AD, they're all there to help you. They're all there to make sure they get the best out of your performance, and they'll be quiet for you. They'll do everything for you. And so all you've got to do is relax, keep to that script, and it's the most relaxing thing to do, really, in the world. The more relaxed you are, the better the performance is.
So anyone watching this who wants to work behind the scenes, whether it's a technician or a director or producer or whatever, is it important that for everybody involved just to get on with each other and be nice to each other? Because, if you're sat in your trailer, do you have a swanky trailer, by the way? Do you have a rider with lots of fancy things on it?
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Oh, right, okay.
You do. Trailer in the past, yeah.
But I mean, if there's someone on set that you don't get on with, surely that's going to affect your performance, or do you have to rise above it?
You do definitely rise. I've never come across it that much at all. Once or twice maybe, but you just have to deal with it, obviously. But I always get on with the crew. Funny enough, I always chat with the crew all the time because I used to be a scaffolder, so I was, I was that side in a way, because you get riggers who do all the sets and stuff, and I go and chat with them. I chat with the cameramen. I chat with whoever's there, and you become like a family for that period you're filming with them. If you're filming like for 3 months, I remember one of the best jobs I had, really. They flew me out to Australia to do this series in Brisbane, and halfway through, I was there for about 10 weeks, and halfway through I had like 2 or 3 weeks off, and they said, do you want me to fly you back, John? And I went, I don't know. He said, he got a family? I went, yeah. He said, get him out, mate. And I went, what do you mean? He said, so they flew my wife and my son out to Australia to join me, upgraded the suite in the hotel. I couldn't believe it. It was like the BBC would never have done that. And so those are the perks. Also, working abroad, I worked in like Lithuania and a lot in Australia, Malaysia, and places like that. So there is that side of it too, where you can branch out. Someone might not see you, because it's an abroad job, but you're still working.
I'm assuming that in parts of the country, in the UK, people will shout hello and maybe recognise you. Do you still get any Billy Corkhill shouts?
I can't believe it. Yeah, you do a lot. I tell you what, up in Scotland, when I was working with the Rapture Theatre a year ago, and up in Edinburgh, all the taxi drivers and that still remember it, and they never forget you. They never forget you. They're always friendly. They always go like, "All right, Billy, how are you?" And it's
I love how you just dropping accents in. But what about in Australia? Because there's a lot of British television in Australia. Do you get recognised in Australia?
I did, funny enough, in the bush as well. It was in the bush when we were filming and everything. And this Aborigine girl said that, "Hey, you look like that fella off the TV." And I said, "Where?" I didn't know it was on in Australia. And apparently they did. They showed it on a certain channel, and it was so it was. I didn't know, but yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there are now more actors, right, to go around. I find that that's the same with a lot of creative industries. There's more people fighting for the same amount of work. But I want to ask you how acting or how actors have changed over the years, because yesterday I was just like doing a bit of research for this, and then I had the TV on in the background, and there's a show on BBC Two in the afternoon called Talking Pictures. And it goes and gets clips of often deceased actors and actresses being interviewed and talking about their craft and talking about their career. And Sylvia Sims narrates it. And yesterday they had Peter Sellers, Alec Guinness, and Dirk Bogarde. So I thought, I'll watch this. And those three, Sellers, Bogarde, and Guinness, when being interviewed, oh my God, they came across so intense and so serious. I mean, chatting to you now, I can tell you're serious about your job, but you're coming across very affable and very kind of open. How I mean, is that an old school that doesn't exist anymore? Do those people still exist?
I think it's dying out. It's dying out. It is that generation. It's even older than my generation, and I think my generation tagged on because we were brought up on the Marlon Brando, and also working class actors. There wasn't a lot of working class actors around during their period. They either changed their accent to very posh, or they had privileged upbringing, whatever. But nowadays there are more. There's a great cross section, diverse section of actors. But then obviously, you have to be quite posh to be an actor, and most of them had plums in them. Even I went, and I thought I don't think I got to see Laurence Olivier, but I never thought he was that good because I used to go, what's so good about him? He just talked, and I thought, and I probably didn't appreciate what he did because he wasn't my style of actor. Whereas Mark Rylance is, Mark Rylance is my style of actor. And it's a matter of preference and a matter of opinion as well, isn't it? That you like a certain style of actor to another. And I've always liked the more naturalistic, modern delivery of Shakespeare rather than the old school, where they get the pentameter right and everything's, the musicality of it is good. But sometimes I don't get the feeling that it's real or it's,
When you were younger, then, are there any like legendary actors that influenced you or you admired? And also today, I mean, who have you worked with that you really like work with, or who would you like to work with?
Well, one of my great ambitions was fulfilled very early on. Well, not too early on, but when I was in my 40s, I worked with Helen Mirren, and I played her. I made her boss and her lover. So, you know what I mean? You can't get a better part than that.
Wow.
So that was one of my, I used to watch her before I went to drama school. I used to admire her work and everything. And then when I got like one of the leading parts in Prime Suspect 5, I said to my agent, "Are you sure I got this part?" I actually have a bed scene with Helen Mirren. It's like, and they were going, "Yes, John, yes, it's yours." And she was wonderful to work with. She never let me down at all in terms of me. In fact, at the read through before we started filming and everything, she was so good with the young actors, because we had a lot of young actors in Prime Suspect. And she said, if there's anything you don't understand or want to know about the set, about hitting marks or about lights, anything, you come and ask me or John or one of the other older actors, and we'll help you out. She was so good with the young actors, So she fulfilled one of my great dreams working with someone like her.
How did you cope with doing a bed scene with someone that you've always admired?
Well, it's all very technical, you know. There's lots of lights through, so it's and also she was more experienced at those scenes than me, so she was like very you know, she was very helpful. She helped me through.
And I mean, and who else have you worked with over the years that you thought, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this? Or is there anyone you'd really like to work with?
I don't know. I'd worked with quite a few, you know, like Robbie Coltrane, Robert Carlyle, Ray Winston. Me and Ray did this thing before Ray became big. And he was one of the funniest guys I've ever worked with. He just made you laugh all day long, Ray. And years later, I was doing a film called There's Only One Jimmy Grimble, about football. And Ray was in it, and I didn't know, but he had this big Winnebago, and I was sharing a Winnebago with this other actor. And I hadn't seen him for 10 years. I knocked on Ray's Winnebago, and he opened the Winnebago door, and he was just there in his white fronts with his big beer gut hanging out. I said, you haven't changed, have you? He says, no, I'm still fat, but I'm richer. He's great, you know. So I have worked with some really wonderful actors that through the time. I've been lucky enough, you know, even with Juliet Stevenson in Law and Order. She played my wife in Law and Order. So, you know, it's hard to remember some of them, but lots. Yeah.
So, as we said earlier, for 40 years, you've got a very busy CV. Is that your agent?
I'll turn it off, even if it is. No. Go on, Graeme.
Yeah, so you've kind of worked pretty constantly for 40 years. And okay, that wasn't your agent, but have you ever been offered stuff that you've just said, no, that's not for me, and turned stuff down? Because you did say you're a jobbing actor, you need to work, but have you turned stuff down, and why have you turned it down?
I did turn something down, and then I didn't regret it later, but I was sorry in a way, because it got fantastic reviews. It was a film called London to Brighton, and I was offered the part of this. It might sound like it was a good part, really, but he was a gangster, but he was a paedophile, right?
Oh, right.
And it wasn't very nice scenes, you know, that he had with this young kid, and I find it very difficult because I try to be more a bit methody, a bit sort of get into the character. And I said, can you show me a photograph of this girl who's playing the young girl? And it showed me, and she looked about 10, and I went, I can't even act to do this part. So I turned it down. My agent was a bit miffed about it because it was an up and coming director, and it got great reviews in the Guardian, but they cut a lot of the scenes that I told you that I turned it down. They cut them. If I'd have known that, I probably would have done it. So there are some that I've turned down and regretted it afterwards, and others not. But I have some. I mean, I'm lucky enough. I've been in a position where I could do that, because at one time in the 90s, there was 3 jobs came in at once, and they were all good. So therefore, how? And you have to weigh up. And in the end, I managed to do 2 in tandem. So they let me cross over, even though one was a period thing and one wasn't. But yeah, that is nice to be in that position. I'm just saying, you know, it's lovely.
So if you're doing a period drama and a contemporary drama at the same time, did you ever get mixed up with who you were?
It was to do with the haircuts and the hairstyles and things like that. So they'd whip you off. I remember going across from the 1940s, a war drama, and the other one I was doing was modern day, playing a gangster in Newcastle or something. And luckily, the hairstyle was okay because it was a bit severe. But no, it's.
So how do you prepare for a role? You get the script. I mean, first of all, I'm presumably you got to like a script as well.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for a role?
Well, at drama school at East 15, I still remember now is the 5 W's, which is who, what, where, when, and why. So you work out who this character is, what he does for a living, why he does it. Even if he's the most evil character, like the one I was talking about, turned down, you have to like them. You have to like the character, even if they're bad, because you know part of, I know it's you that's playing it, but you have to like get really deep into them. Also the clothes that you wear, sometimes it's the shoes, that if you feel comfortable in those shoes and you think it might make you walk different, or you know, something to do with clothing or a hairstyle or whatever. And the more you sink yourself into the character, I mean, I like hiding behind the character because I'm quite shy, so I can do anything in disguise, you know, if I can be the character, no matter how flamboyant. Or, it was like in Emmerdale, I played a gay character, you know, an older gay character. And I said to myself, I'm not going to stereotype this man because he's gay. I'm not going to make him feminine and, you know, and the sort of camp and everything. He's just an ordinary bloke. He just happens to be gay, and that's it. And I enjoyed playing that character. And I got a great feedback from the gay community saying, John, yeah, you've done us a good service, which is the best thing, you know, you can get if someone, if you get feedback, because you can't get feedback from TV unless it's fan mail, whereas an audience in the theatre you do, because you get an applause or not at the end. So if you get letters saying you're doing a good job, right, then you know that you're doing the right thing, something's right about it. And also you're learning all the time. Even I'm learning. I watch a lot of dramas still, just to, you know, keep it all going. And when I'm not working, I try and learn a speech every week or every month.
Oh, wow.
Just to keep this going. Because as you're getting older, yeah, luckily I'm all right. Luckily, you know, my mind's very good, but I try and keep it exercised like any other muscle.
So there's no resting on your laurels then, even after 40 years of success?
No, not at all. No, you're only as good as your last performance, and that's true.
I think that's very good advice, actually. You're only good as your last performance. It's very true. Let me rewind to a show that doesn't exist anymore, but you were once surprised by Michael Aspel on This Is Your Life. What was that like?
You've done your research. Yes, brilliant.
No, I remember it. That's why I used to watch that.
Really? Yeah. Well, I just couldn't believe that, because I think it was nearly the last one. It was the penultimate one. And I was doing Merseybeat at the time. And it had been in its second season, I think. And Leslie Ash had joined us. And we were called in on a Sunday, which is quite unusual. The whole cast was called in on a Sunday to do this big scene in the control room. And I had to learn reams and reams. So I'd only got the script like on the Friday. And I'm going, oh, why are they calling out? I was really pissed off about it, going, oh, I can't believe it. So we go in and we go through the scene. And one of the actors, obviously, because it's not going to be filmed or anything, he keeps drying. And I'm going, oh, come on. Come on, Andy, get on with it, will you? Stop drying all the time. Learn your lines and all that. And anyway, we went again. And at the corner of my eye, I could see it was David Aspel. Michael Aspel.
Michael Aspel, yeah.
Yeah. At the corner of my eye, and I went, Leslie Ash they're going to get Leslie Ash. Because I thought it was for her. Anyway, they come right round and he looked at me and had his book with him and everything. And John McArdle, This Is Your Life, blah, blah. And I went, I can't believe it. It was absolute. And the thing is, my wife knew for 3 months beforehand.
Wow.
She had to liaise with the TV company on finding out who my best friends were. My drama teacher, who was at Northampton College of Further Education, who got me into it. Friends of mine from Australia, they flew over. So she had to keep all that going. They locked me in a room, in a hotel room, until they prepared everything. So I couldn't see anybody or anything until I came out on stage. And it was just like the best thing ever. You know, it's just like a massive wedding, really, because it's paid for by someone else.
That's brilliant. No, I do remember. Yeah. I do remember that. Are there any roles that you really would love to play, or have you pretty much done enough of a variety? And what's on the horizon? You mean, obviously you got show no signs of slowing down or calling it a day.
No, I just want to do more TV, obviously. I'm not going to do any more theatre. No, that's an exclusive for you now.
But why?
I've done it now. I've had enough. I'm not going to tour anymore. Or you know, it's hard work when you're getting older doing theatre. It's a young person's game. So I'm not doing any more theatre. I'm just going to either do radio and TV, and obviously that's in the hands of my agent. And see what comes up after this pandemic sort of dies down. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping. Well, I'll just stay acting until I can physically and mentally do it. You know, there's retire. You'd never retire.
No, I'm with you on that. We've obviously given some good advice along the way of this chat for students, but I mean, what would you say to people who want to work in an industry that's currently on hold because of the pandemic? What can they do in the meantime once they graduate in May, for example?
Yeah. If you can't get a job as an actor, which you know at the moment you can't, if you can get an agent, you need to get an agent. They need to see something that you've done, or do your own show reel. If you can get a show reel together, get friends to do it, and make sure it's really good. Work so hard on it so it looks so professional. You know, even if you have to pay for one, get a great show reel to put on Spotlight. But also I think to get in Spotlight, you have to have done some professional work. So I'd do anything that's classed as professional work, you know, in the business, whether it's, you know, doing a short film, or whether it's doing, you know, sort of like pop videos like I've done and things like that, if you can get hold of them. If not, you've got to, like I said, you've got to have that other string to your bow, something that you can do when you're not working as an actor, either supply teaching or my son, Joe, he worked for a company called Elevate, which goes into schools and does seminars on how to do better in exams. And really they work from scripts, and it's like being an actor or a stand-up, because they work from a script and you go on stage and you talk to the whole of year 6 or whatever it is. Something like that. Something, if you can get anything related to the business, even if it is doing something backstage, even if you still want to act, you can't get acting work. So if you can do some running on a film set or whatever, that's one good piece of advice. If you do running on a film set, you find out so much about how the system works on that film set, where the lights go, where the camera is. You get to know all the jargon of what they're talking about. Because when you first come on a film set, you don't know what the heck's going on, you know. But if you've got that advantage of working there first, it helps a lot.
Have you done any directing, or have you got any desire to do any directing, like some actors do?
I directed one late night show, which I didn't like doing it. But then I directed a film, funny enough, a short film. But it cost a lot of money to make this short film, but it did win a prize in Cannes, and it won a prize in Italy. It was shown in Los Angeles. It's called The Duke. You can see it on YouTube. And I loved directing that. I absolutely loved it, because we shot it on 35mm, which is the big old stuff, good stuff. I had like a top crew, all professional crew with me. I was very lucky to have this, and I enjoyed every minute of that. But it was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. It was more nerve-wracking than acting, because you're responsible for everything. You're responsible for if there's enough tea for the cast and the crew and the food and stuff like that. You're responsible for a lot. But the main thing I liked was directing the actors and working with the cameraman on the shots I wanted. And I loved doing that. And I was offered some work as a director after that, but I didn't want to do it because of that. You know, at least it was something I'd written myself, so I knew what I wanted. And to do someone else's work, I would have found more difficult directing.
Why do a lot of actors want to become directors? And does being an actor make you a better director? Because there's so many amazing directors who've never acted.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of very good directors who've never acted. But also I've worked with some of the best directors I've worked with on TV are ex-actors, because they know in terms of performance, you'll get an actor who's turned director will get a good performance out of his actor in front of a camera, whereas a technical director will get the best look. Maybe he'll get a good performance, but he'll get the best look of that film. So there are two different schools there but I do like working with actor directors. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm guessing you keep up to date with who's making what, and I mean what do you watch of an evening in the McArdle household? What type of thing do you watch?
Well, I've always loved it since, you know, we've been able to stream stuff. You know, I like technology. I'm not a dinosaur when it comes to that. either through help from my son or my daughter. I do love technology, and I do love watching really good stuff on Netflix. In fact, I'm a member of BAFTA, right? So they usually send out the films for you to vote on every year about now. So you're getting inundated with all these films. Well, now a lot of those films are on Netflix. At one time, I used to get those films before anyone else did. But now a lot of the BAFTA films are on Netflix already. So, you're getting them there straight away. But, I do like, really good dramas like, sort of Line of Duty, which I think is excellent. Joe McArdle is one of the best TV writers in the country, or in the world.
We were talking to Craig Parkinson last week at this
really?
time last week. Yeah, we had some great Line of Duty sales.
Yeah, very good.
Writers, you mentioned writers. Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Jimmy McGovern work on Brookside in the early days?
Where he started, Jimmy, definitely.
And he's gone on to do some great. Have you done other stuff with Jimmy since?
The only thing I did after Brookside with Jimmy was Cracker.
Oh, that's it, of course, Cracker.
That was a Jimmy McGovern, but nothing else, because Jimmy doesn't really like to use a lot of his ex-Brookside actors for some reason.
All right, okay.
I don't know why, but there's a lot of us that don't go into his stuff because he doesn't, that he likes to separate his Brookside actors from some of his work. But he is one of the best. But also you had people like Jim Cartwright had written for Brookside, John Godber, Paul Abbott. There's a long list of young writers who broke their teeth in stuff in Brookside because it was such a, that sort of drama. And also, who was that other guy? Can't remember his name. Frank Cottrell Boyce.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a couple more questions, but what would if you could go back in time to the young John McArdle, what would you say to your younger self if you knew what was going to happen over the next 4 years? What would you say to him?
To my younger self, well, I wish I'd have started earlier. I wish I'd have started when I was 20. I know I was 27, but there was a lot more roles I could have got in. What else? I don't think I'd change anything. I think the progression I made as an actor has fulfilled my ambitions. It's as ambitious as I got. The only thing I missed out on, which I'd love to have cracked, was America. I would love to have worked in the States, but I didn't go over there. I didn't go. A lot of actors now go over to Los Angeles for 3 months, hang out, and try and get an agent there and get work in America. Where I remember I was in New York, and I went to see an agent in New York after I'd done Prime Suspect, because it was big in America.
Big show.
Yeah. And an agent asked to see me. So I went over to New York to meet the agent, and he said he'd take me on, but I'd have to move to New York and live there. And at the time, my family were young, and I didn't want to be separated from them. So you have to, if you've got a family, you have to find that balance. Because I never toured when I was younger. Never toured at all. I made a promise that I would never tour, and I was lucky enough that I didn't have to. So,
Why? I was gonna. You answered the second question, which was going to be, do you have any regrets? You've just answered that. But just finally, why do the Americans love British actors? Because I mean, I'm just watching. I love going into Netflix and going back and Amazon Prime and Sky and watch things I missed first time around, like The Wire, for example. There's an example, The Wire, full of British actors playing American parts. Why do the Americans love the Brits so much?
Because they're good actors. That they'll tell you that. There's a lot of good actors in this country. I mean, honestly, it's the home, of theatre and acting and what have you. And like you said, in The Wire, you've got Dominic West. I worked with Dominic before The Wire, when he'd first left drama school. We did a series together called Out of Hours. One of the nicest guys I've ever worked with, Dominic. Even, when he was this young sort of get up and go guy, he was still a wonderful guy to work with. And but Americans do love the British actors. You look at that, The Undoing, you've got like Hugh Grant in that, and then you've got Douglas Hodge, and you've got the young boy. That young boy is a British actor. The son is in it. Right. So you even got child actors who are breaking into.
Wow, I didn't know he was. That's a great series. I didn't know that kid was British. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, John, thank you so much for joining us today. That was absolutely fantastic. Lots
Can
of
I
great
just
stuff
do
there.
one thing? A bit cheeky of me or not, but if any of your students or anything want to know anything more about my career, my acting, I did write a biography, which is
good man.
That's when I was like younger. That was a still from Prime Suspect 5, by the way. And you get it on Amazon if you want it for a Christmas present.
What was it called? You Never Say Goodbye.
You Never Said Goodbye.
You Never Said Goodbye, John McArdle. Absolutely brilliant plug. It's just like the One Show or Graham Norton. But John, that was honestly, thank you for that. Really valuable.
I hope it's been.
I think so. I know it has been. But listen, thank you very much for joining us.